it is 2 minutes past the hour, so we will go ahead and get started. I want to thank you for joining us for our webinar on the future of microprocessing, featuring our partnership with Intel. We have Chris O'Malley and Marcos Silvas on the webinar with us to talk about Intel and their microprocessors. All of our panels have a slot or an OPS slot. This allows for you to have an onboard computer to go in the back of your panel so you can make your panel and your computer an all-in-one solution. All of those onboard computers have an Intel chip. This allows for efficient, reliable multitasking, as well as the chip has an integrated graphics card, which allows for clear audio and video quality on your display. Intel has proven time and again that they are the best option for microprocessors, and that is why we have chosen here at Newline to work with Intel now and for our future OPS releases. That is about the extent of my knowledge on microprocessors, so I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Chris O'Malley as well as Marcos Silva with Intel.
Alrighty, thank you, Ellen. Let me, I'm going to share my screen here in a second. Hopefully this was going to work for everybody. And can you see it now?
I can.
Alrighty, so Ellen and everyone from Newline, thank you very much for the opportunity to present here today. To be honest, my wife thanks you also, because this gave me an excuse, and I'm on video here, to actually get out of my 10-year-old ratty Notre Dame t-shirt and ball cap. So I actually put on a collared shirt today, so I was applauded by my wife this morning. In typical Zoom fashion that everyone's experienced over the last few weeks, my dog is sitting at my feet here. I told the kids to keep her upstairs, but somehow she has made it down. So if there's an interruption, I apologize. So anyway, so brief background on me. I'm a marketing director in what we call the Internet of Things division at Intel. I've been doing this for 15 years or so in a variety of different segments. Also joining me today is Marcos Silva. He's the technical person on our team. I like to say that I'm here for my good looks and charming personality, and Marcos is here for his brain. There's a reason he's not on video right now. So anyways, I just want to make that clear. Few other things for the Newline folks. I'm a recovering attorney, so I'm used to being interrupted by judges or anybody else who wants to interrupt. So from a Q&A standpoint, you could hold them till the end. You can interrupt me at any point in time. It does not bother me in the least bit. And the only other caveat is that in typical Intel fashion, I'm a bit of a gadget guy and a data nerd. So I allow myself 1 or 2 tangents per presentation. So if I start going off into a what we call a rat hole, you know, just give me a little latitude for a second. You know, that's what keeps me interested and motivated. And with that, I think I can proceed to a kind of a brief summary of what we're going to talk about here. That would help if the slide would actually advance. Well, that's perfect. All right, I guess everyone can hear me, but I'm going to have to, there we go, it's working now. So anyway, I'm going to give a brief background on Intel. I'll call it a commercial. It's not very long, but it's just going to provide some insight on the Intel. A little bit of the silicon evolution, you know, how it's progressed. This is primarily how compute has progressed over the years. And then, you know, an intro on why we focus on display technology. It seems an odd focus for Intel, but when I go through some of the data on this, you'll see why we focus on display technology is absolutely one of the most important things right now and going forward into the future. And then I want to discuss on kind of the crux of the presentation over Intel plus Newline technology in a flat panel display, and how the common features and functionalities on your display are enhanced and brought about actually by the Intel technology. And then we'll have time for a brief Q&A after that. So with that is our standard, this is a mission statement of Intel. And to be truthful, we're all nerdy technology guys. So we take this to heart. Our purpose is to create world-changing technology that enriches the lives of every single person on Earth. And we don't do that in isolation. We can't do that in isolation. We do that by partnering by industry leaders such as Newline. Newline is a clear leader in display technology. That's important to us. So we select them. We partner with Newline worldwide, whether it be in India, whether it be in Latin America, the US, all throughout Europe, within China. we partner with Newline. So they're a global company that we partner everywhere with and work very closely with them from the development of all their panels and how to best use Intel technology. So the other thing, I'm sure some of you are aware, but we are a large company. We have massive capital investments. So from a simple fabrication plant where we manufacture our plants costs over $10 billion to make. That counts tooling and the actual structure itself. For those of you that are afraid of COVID, the best place to hide out would actually be in an Intel factory. You know, our standard clean room is well over 1,000 times more clean than a typical operating room. The air is recirculated in less than 10 seconds. So there's absolutely no danger of getting COVID in a factory at Intel. Super clean. In addition to the capital investments for our factories, we also have over $13 billion in research and development. And that's how we continue to bring technology forward on the cadence that we've been known for in the past. So from a scale standpoint, I'm not going to focus on this, but we're a massive company. We have partners everywhere. But from just a few things, one of the things is that in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll note, we are the single, it was just released recently, we are the single largest purchaser of green power in 2019, and we're going to be for that in 2020 as well. So for renewable for us, you know, it's wind, it's solar, it's hydro, things like that. And we're also the #1 company in the world for mineral ranking. So all of the minerals that go into an Intel processor are vetted for proper sustainable practices and human rights areas. We were actually one of the people that started this entire supply chain methodology. So it's a big part of what we do. When we do that, we always look for our partners as well. We audit with partners to make sure that they're following similar standards as well. And then, you know, starting my tech nerdy pages, Intel is not just the silicon. You know, we have massive amounts of technology that goes into the process and the packaging of that. Of course, the x86 architecture, which is where you get most of the benefits from, but memory is critical to your performance. We're devoted to memory as well. Interconnect technology, both within chip and within data centers, we focus on that. Security is becoming, in this world of data, is becoming vitally important. We spend an inordinate amount of money on how do we secure all of this data, how do we secure your chip, and how do we secure the platforms that you run on ours. And then lastly, software. You know, we're known as a manufacturing company, we're known as a hardware company, but we're actually one of these very largest software companies in the entire world. We build all of the base level, whether it be BIOS software, firmware, things like that. We build software on top of our hardware building blocks such that it's easy for software vendors, many of whom are partners with Newline, to build innovative and futuristic software solutions. That software is one of the key differentiators for Intel versus some of the other hardware companies that just do provide you hardware. We provide a whole software base, and we enable thousands, you know, hundreds of thousands of software vendors to extract the value out of Intel hardware. This one I'll just go brief. So we're not just a PC-focused company anymore. We have a variety of platforms. Newline focuses on the platform products, the Core i3, the i5, and the i7. We'd love them to purchase everywhere, but your displays might start to get a little too expensive for you, but we're always lobbying for that. So we'll see what we can do in a few years. So with that said, I want to get to you know, where most people think of Intel and where the compute has really changed over the years. So if you look at, you know, when the transistor on a silicon was started in 1958, you had about 2 transistors, and they were about a ½ inch in length. Now in our 2018 processor, and by the way, we don't release this information anymore, we had about 7 billion transistors, and we have 14 nanometer is the lithography that we build these solutions on. So if you look at it from a cost standpoint, it was $1 per transistor in 1971. I don't even know how many zeros in there, but it's infinitely, infinitely cheaper now. Sometimes it helps from an analogy because these are a lot of numbers. So if you looked at a pinhead, we could put about almost 250 million transistors on the top of a pinhead. Massive. If you look at the processor improvement, that's a 27 billion fold improvement over the last 47 years. Very significant. Another analogy that just kind of brings home what's happening here is if you look at the Apollo 11, all of the compute within the Apollo 11 in the guidance system, processing power today in your standard iPhone, a 2-year-old iPhone, is going to be about 100,000 times more than that. Your standard local or random access memory, 1 million times more today on a typical phone, 7 million times more storage, long-term storage, and what we call ROM storage. The thought the thought process that I like to think about this is, rather than just looking in the past, what we are going for is that the cost of a transistor, the cost of compute is getting cheaper every single year. In 2022, we'll be on 7 nanometers. So in that far right where it's 14, we'll be on 7 nanometers. So we're going to double the compute power in just a mere 24 months. As that happens, you have to start to think of compute as essentially free. And when you think of compute as essentially free, you can add it to everything. You make intelligent devices. That's exactly what we do with a display. We're adding compute to a display and making it an intelligent device. Think about that with everything, and that's what's happening to the world. That's why you're seeing so many dramatic changes in a compute from the world. It's that infinite improvement in getting everything cheaper to make compute cheaper. For those worried about how this compares to a human brain, just to let you know, a human brain is about 100 billion neurons and 300 trillion connections. So we're still a ways to go before we reach the human brain. So don't be too worried just yet. So anyways, from a value proposition standpoint, in the beginning and for the first, 80% of Intel's existence, we focused entirely on silicon innovation. That was really what we did. It was only silicon. In the last few years, we've moved to more a product category. So that picture in the middle there, how do we improve touch latency on a display? How do we improve graphics? How do we improve video on a display? That's what we're showing there. Today, what we're doing is actually focusing on vertical innovation. So what I'm showing you there is, how do we improve an experience in a classroom? How do we improve the experience in a corporate office space? And again, as I referenced in the first slide, we can't do this in isolation. We have to partner with leaders like Newline. So we partner with Newline on how do we make display technology work in a classroom? How do we make it easy? How do we make it an open platform? And not just that, how do we record things better? How do we use video better in a classroom? We partner with them because we need that to understand how to make it better. And the absolute same thing holds true in the vertical innovation as well. For the corporate collaboration as well. Absolutely critical for us. So with that said, I'm going to move in kind of the next step. One of the questions that people always have is, why is Intel so focused on display technology? Why are you so focused on video? And it actually makes sense if you think about it. So 90% of the information transferred to the brain, the human brain, is visual information. What's kind of an interesting anecdote, if you look at all of the data that we as humans are producing today, it's massive amounts. It's 44 zettabytes in 2020, which is an insanely high number. But 85% of that is video information, and it's trending towards 90%. So it's kind of interesting that all the data we're creating, 90% is visual. The same exact thing holds true for the brain. Visual is everything when it comes to the brain. We always talk about a picture is worth 1,000 words. It turns out that it's actually worth a heck of a lot more than that. So here's again, to relate to that point, 65% of people were visual learners. Visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text, and the human eye can register 36,000 visual messages an hour. We are visual machines. That's what we do. This is why we focus on visual at Intel. It's critical to everything we do in the future. It's critical to how we learn. It's critical how do we interrelate with everybody. So I want to go kind of to an education example and kind of a life example as we go forward here. So this is just a picture, this is the world we live in today. I call it, we live in a world of screens, whether it be children, looking at a cell phone on social media, whether it be a typical teenager's gaming platform, whether it be walking through a street, Times Square with massive digital signage everywhere, working in a factory, or even navigating through an airport, visual displays are everywhere. Interactive displays are everywhere. This is how we function as a population. This is how children have been raised. I always think about it, my children, when they first looked at a TV, a giant big screen TV, the first thing to do is walk up to it and try to touch it. The idea of interactivity is so embedded with them. When I see a TV, I never think about touching it. But children nowadays, they're digital natives. They assume touch displays for everything. It's part of what they have, and they're going to expect it as they go forward. So think about that from this mindset. We live in this world of screens, and you're a child, and then you go to school, and here's what you get. Gee, no wonder we lose the children. That's why we consider the display is so dramatically important. Actually, one comment here, I want to point out that I'm actually pointing, if you can see me. That whiteboard there, a Newline display has at least 10 billion times more compute power than that whiteboard does there. A lot more functionality in the Newline display. But anyway, that's the point I'm trying to make here from an education standpoint. This is important in education. The same thing holds. We're all people who go to conference rooms in a corporation. The same thing holds true in a corporate conference room. Visual aids are what we live by. It's what we focus on. And right here is a prime example. You know, we've done research in a classroom. The same holds true for corporate office. Visual aids improve classroom learning up to 400%. 100% of students has said visual and video actually improves their ability to learn. We know this is important. It's absolutely critical, and we've got to focus on this area. So that's, you know, I just want to get that across. That's why it's important to Intel. That's why it's important to Newline, and that's why we're driving all of these advancements. So with that, I'd like to move a little bit towards a Newline right now. So this is a typical Newline panel. I wish I had this background actually behind me right now instead of my basement right now, but I wasn't able to get that to work. But if I think of the panel as the display, and what you're getting is the hub, what you're getting with that is you're getting a whiteboard. You're getting the ability to screen share. So whether it be your computer, you can share it on the big screen, or multiple screens at the same time. It's a touch screen. It's a computer, so all the functionalities of compute you get, plus you get all these peripherals. And to be frank, I should apologize to Newline because I kind of gave you basic audio and video peripherals there. But the microphone array, the video capabilities of a Newline display is pretty significant. It's not just a basic computer put there. There's a lot of technology that goes into making the audio better and to making the video better. So all of that is encapsulated in the simple display, and it's there for you. You could, of course, build this with separate USB, speakers, separate USB cameras, separate USB microphones, but then you're going to have to work to make everything work together. You're going to have to deal with noise and echo cancellation and all these other things. Newline does all of this in the box. And on top of that, when you add this compute, you get all of these other features that are popping up. There's 3D content for graphics, very important. The streaming of video, annotation. So think of voice to text note taking, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, translation in the future, audio, video enhancements. All of that stuff is in there. And rather than going into that depth right now, I'm going to go advance forward a little bit to show you where that plays. So again, if I look at a Newline panel, and of course you have the peripherals, you have the screen and touch built into that. But when you add a computer on top, what you start to be able to take advantage of is the power of the compute and all the other elements that come with that. So, first, it's an open software platform. You saw in Ellen's introduction that openness is critical to everything Newline does. You can run multi-OSs, you can basically browse on the internet, you can do video, you can do any application you want. So whether if you're in education, whether it's Houghton Mifflin digital content or Follett Books or Scholastic Education or John Wiley or anything like that, it's going to run on Intel. And you're going to know that Intel, because of our massive reach and developer scale, we've worked with all of those companies to make sure that they optimize their experience on Intel processors. So you're going to get the best experiences you can get with that. You're also going to get facilities, environmental control when you have a compute. So think about lighting, think about utilization rate for the room, think about temperature control, scheduling. All of that stuff can be done on the computer built into the machine. Virtualization, I kind of went with this when, multi-OS or security functionality, you can build in that also. So audio analytics, you're not seeing much of this right now, but this is where we're working towards in the future. We partner with Newline on some of this as well. So think about in the future where, say you're a class, and it's the current environment right now, and the teacher is recording a math class. It's all recorded. If I take that and automatically put that into voice to text, and if the child at night is going over math and he's like, oh my gosh, I want to see when the teacher was talking about quadratic equations, they could search for the quadratic equations and they could immediately advance to every single time the teacher said quadratic equations on the video. Keyword indexing everything that the teacher said. We're doing this now in China. This is something that we expect to see going forward. In an office space, think of context notes. Literally, you're going to do transcription of the meeting, and you're also going to do context notes, and even in the future, translation. So if you're having a phone call, a video call with someone out of China or someone out of Korea, you could be speaking in your language, and you're going to be able to have subtitles with a translation. All of that stuff is coming. All of that stuff is something that we're working on. Newline is working on. It's not going to happen overnight, but these are the things that we're striving towards right now, and you'd be shocked how fast that technology is coming. So video analytics is another thing that we're absolutely working on. So think about, it could be at a corporation, it could be just auto attendance. So as soon as you walk into the room, it knows who you are. If it's your meeting, it could say, oh, wow, it's Chris or it's Ellen, and immediately set up the flat panel display to the conference that, Ellen or I was going to run. It can also do meeting effectiveness. Are people engaged in the meeting? Are they paying attention? So you have an idea at the end of the meeting, are you interested? We're using this in China for education. So in education in China, they do auto attendance. So they actually use the video or the camera on their flat panel display to take attendance, and they take attendance throughout the entire class. They use it to like how many people are raising their hand. So they do behavior recognition with cameras. They also do it with kind of an anonymous fashion where the teacher gets feedback where it says, hey, 30% of your class was paying attention or 80% of your class was paying attention. And they can learn to increase their teaching methodology or pedagogy from that. So if a teacher has, at the end of a class, they say, wow, they were really, really captivated the first 30 minutes of class. But for whatever reason, the second half of the class, it kind of dropped off. Was that my content, or was that just the natural attention span of grade schoolers? Those are things you can learn as you harness the power of video analytics. And again, all of that is happening on a computer. Data analytics, utilization rates, all of that, how many people are using conference rooms. Conference rooms for a corporation are incredibly expensive to maintain. And people need to understand how are they being used, how many people are using them, because then a corporation can make decisions on their conference room space based upon all that data analytics. So the other things that are really happening, and this is happening right now, is audio enhancements. So we've all lived the video conferencing dream or nightmare over the last 6 months, whatever you want to call it. Quality audio is one of the absolutely critical things that makes or breaks a meeting. We are working with companies like Audio. So, the Newline display has a microphone array in there. They have to make sure that the noise cancellation works, the echo cancellation works, things like automatic gain control can work, and that it's optimized on Intel. Those are things that we're working on, and we're continuing to work on that. We actually have within our chips, we have DSP built into our chips, which is kind of something that's really, really good for audio pre-processing. So we're working with companies like Newline and audio companies or speaker or microphone companies to how to perfect that audio at the edge before we actually send it up to the cloud and transmit it across to another area. So massive improvements in audio over the next several years, and that's one of the key things we're working on. Video enhancements. So the one I always like to use is like, you're looking at me right now and I probably have like a shiny head and a shiny nose. One of the key things we find is that people want filters. Like everybody uses Instagram filters. We're building video filters so I can get rid of this shiny bald head and shiny nose. My hope is that in the future they can actually airbrush real time some hair on my head or something. But those are one of the key things that teachers always want. Like, oh my gosh, I don't like the way I look on camera. Let's get some filters. We're working on those filters. When you're in a conference room or a classroom, we're looking on, you can pan, you can zoom, you can crop. Lots of different things that we can do in a video enhancement. And all of those things are going to be happening. And those things are important to happen at the edge, on the computer, sitting on the display itself, before it goes into the cloud. Security and manageability. I've referenced this already. We focus on security from the hardware up, and then we work with the software ecosystem to make sure that they can build security into their solutions as well. As we produce more and more data and more of our world is in that data, we've got to continue to focus on security, and that's one of the things that we absolutely focus on. And again, portions of the compute go into driving that. Okay, so that was long-winded, but I just wanted to let you know that it's not just a simple display. There's a whole lot of technology that's packaged inside of that display, and all of that technology and from Newline is optimized in Intel because we work very closely with them from the ground up on how this is going to work, and we continue to do that as we go forward. So anyway, so one more tech slide here, and then I'll open it up for questions. So here is a little bit more illustrating like what portions of the CPU. So the bottom left is kind of a picture of a typical CPU. For those really tech geeks, it's not perfect, but we were just trying to show to you what are the features of a Newline platform and what areas of the CPU are they drawing from. So if you're looking at the smart camera, it uses the AI engine that sits within the GPU or the graphics processor unit. The audio system is going to use, of course, it's the I/O, which is how the audio is connected to the computer and speaks to the computer, but it's also using accelerators, kind of the bottom right there in that dark green. We have what we have DSP built in it. So pre-processing for audio to make it better is going to be done in that area. Sensors are using artificial intelligence along with CPU. We have screen sharing, that's using CPU along with GPU. All of these things are, you could see with the color coding is what we've done. But again, it's just to highlight the fact that there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes to optimize the performance that you're experiencing with the Newline display. And we're going to continue as we move forward. And my guess is that as we're focused more on this, the future advancements that we see are going to be far more significant than the ones you've seen in the last 5 years. It's moving that rapidly. So expect to see some really, really fun changes over the next several years. And with that, I know I was fast and I didn't get interrupted by any questions. Kind of leave you with this note, which is one of our founders, and it's the way kind of Intel looks at it, is don't be encumbered by history. Go off and do something wonderful. That's what we try to do by partnering with customers like Newline, and hopefully Newline's partners as well can partner with them and do something wonderful as well. And with that,